Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be Alpha Male Rules, Conservative Married to a Liberal. So I got an interesting email. After last week, I did a video, it was on Monday, video newsletter where a guy had gone out on a couple dates, hooked up with this girl who happened to be, he was a Trump supporter, she was a lefty. On their, I think it was their second date, they got on the topic of politics, and obviously it didn't go well. But at the end of the day, she ended up going home and sleeping with him. But when he tried getting in touch with her a few days later to go out on another date, she just told him that she couldn't get past the politics, and they both moved on. And so this particular reviewer, what's great is he's 67 years old. He's been married almost 40 years now to the same woman. She was 18 and he was 27 when they met. And what's interesting is he's retired a full bird colonel in the U.S. Army, and he's a staunch conservative, been that way his whole life, alpha male style guy. But his wife, as he puts it, is a borderline socialist and staunch leftist. And so what was interesting is politics was never really a big issue in their family. They never really talked much about it, except until Trump got elected, and then it obviously brought out a lot of the divisions. And so it's interesting to hear his perspective and how he handled those dust-ups and those conflicts with his wife, because I saw a lot of people in the comments and a lot of people messaging me, that how do you make it work when you got somebody that your views are just diametrically opposed to one another. And this is a good email for that. In this particular case, their conflict is politics. And so it's like, how do you handle things when you disagree with the person that you're with? Well, the most important thing is, as I discussed in 3% Man, is you got to know who you are, what you want, what you're all about, what you believe in, what the principles are that you stand for. And the right people, even if they disagree with you, will love you just the same. And so that's the kind of the thread that you see through his email, is that he's always the alpha male. He's got to take it or leave it kind of attitude. And you see 4 decades of how that works, because he's been following me since 2011, he says, and mostly always did everything naturally that I talked about in my first book, 3% Man. And then obviously, but he still, despite the fact he was married all these decades, he still had the attitude, hey, I can get better, I can learn. And obviously that's why he really got into 3% Man, and he's stuck with me for basically 9 years. And so I really appreciate the fact that people stick around and they jive with the message that I got to say. And he's got a good success because of that, because this is a pretty touchy topic. I know in my own family, we've had family members, especially when Trump first got elected, they just flat out refused. Well, we're not coming to visit you for Thanksgiving because we're so upset that you guys are Trump supporters, it's absurd, but it is what it is. Even on, I don't really spend much time on Facebook, but I go there for my ad campaigns and things because my assistant does all that posting. But I remember when Trump got elected, there were a lot of people that I'd been friends with for many decades who unfriended me because of that. It's like people I went to high school with, people I grew up with. I was thinking, what? But that's the way some people are. So I have a quote that I wrote, and then we'll jump right in to his email. And the quote says, alpha males always stand up for themselves and what they believe in. They do not change their opinions to match the opinions of others in hopes that they do not get offended or upset. They speak their mind and live their truth and are considered to be the most honest and trustworthy of men because people always know where they stand with them. They have a take it or leave it kind of attitude, and they know that the right people will stick around and celebrate who they are, while those that don't are encouraged to find people who are a better match for them. Yeah, it's like, hey, no hard feelings. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. I'm not going to change who I am or how I live my life because you're getting butthurt and upset and offended. If you're getting butthurt, upset, and offended at my language or how I live my life or the way I live my life, then that's your problem. I think it was Wayne Dyer said, other people's opinion of you is really none of your business. And that's pretty powerful when you think about it, because then you don't really have any attachment to how other people feel about you. It's a good way to go through life, because when you care about what other people think about you, you then put them in a position of power where they can be a tyrant in your life because you're always seeking their approval and you're hoping not to do things to upset or offend them. And I wrote about in my second book, Mastering Yourself, some of the issues that I had with my old business partners that were very strong-willed alpha male type guys that oftentimes it was kind of their way or the highway. And a lot of times to avoid conflict, I would go along with things I didn't really want to go along with because we were all doing so well and making so much money together. But after a decade of that, working together and being in business together, I just kind of had enough. And I wanted to do my own thing, my own way. And, all these years later, 15 years on, it's nice not having business partners. It's nice when I decide that I want to do something, I can just go and do it. I'm not having to think about how can I sell this to this person and get them on board with what I'm doing. And then once he's on board, I ought to go to my other partner and get him on board. It's like I don't have to worry about those things anymore. It's so nice. It's great for your inner peace, let me tell you. So with that said, let's go through his email. He says, Dear Coach Corey, I've followed you for a good number of years after I first discovered you on YouTube back in 2011. Well, again, I really appreciate the fact you stuck around all these years. He says, I'm a 67-year-old man, a retired full-bird colonel in the U.S. Army, and I'm writing you in response to one of your most recent videos dealing with a gal who rejected one of your viewers for being a Trump supporter. After watching the video, I knew I had to write in to share my own experience between me and my very liberal wife. Me and my wife have been married for almost 40 years. We met when I was 27 and she was only 18. I had been raised in a traditional conservative household and was brought up on strong American values. Now it's crazy today. It's just like what you see on TV and then you see what's going on with the school system and they're not even taught these things anymore. And on top of that, a lot of kids are having it put into their mind that they should hate our country and that it should be destroyed. It's like, man, it's just amazing the night and day difference between like when I was growing up and what was sold to us and what was taught to us versus today. He says, interestingly enough, my parents were themselves married for 60 years until my father's death. Growing up in such a household, I have been a conservative all my life and am unwavering yet not unreasonable in my viewpoints. My wife, on the other hand, is a borderline socialist and a staunch leftist even at the age of 58. Like you always say, Coach, women respond to what they respond to. Attraction is not a choice. Feminine women are attracted to dominant masculine men. You hear that referred to in the media and the news these days as toxic masculinity. And if you look at how men are presented, and it's just beat into our heads that men need to be more feminine. And like I think Harry Styles recently put on a dress, and you got a bunch of people in leftist Hollywood are going, "Oh yeah, it's so masculine to put on a woman's dress." It's like, come on. It's like men don't walk around wearing dresses like that just for the hell of it, trying to claim that they're masculine because they got a fucking dress on. It's like, give me a break. But it's like that's the kind of shit that's just rammed down our throat in our culture, because what happens is when you weaken masculine men, when you weaken the alphas, when you make men more feminine, more submissive, more compliant, more afraid to speak up for themselves and what they believe in, the go along, to get along kind of attitude, and cause them to be more submissive, it puts them in a state of fear because they're no longer naturally in a natural state of masculinity, which is about purpose, drive, mission, succeeding, breaking through barriers, overcoming challenges, accomplishing things. And you get a guy that's feminized and weak and insecure about himself. He's kind of a mindless drone to this state, if you will. It allows people in power, when you got a submissive, docile populace, they'll just go along with anything that comes down the pike, whether it be wearing a mask or giving up your guns. I mean, all you got to do is look at Australia and more recently New Zealand, how one little event happens and like, all right, we got to just ban these things and get rid of all of them. We'll keep y'all safe. And then people just willingly give them up, just like what's going on now with the virus and the lockdowns. You look at California, and the governors are just going, close your business, and if you don't close your business, we'll send the police to arrest you and take you to jail for operating your business and feeding your family. Meanwhile, none of these governors they're not writing the checks for these people whose businesses and lives are being destroyed in the name of saving people, supposedly. Like, what about all the suicides increasing? What about all the people's lives that are destroyed? What about all the divorces that are going to happen now? What about all the broken families that are going to happen because of these things? These jerk offs in power never think about these things. But if you have a feminized population that's weak, that's too afraid to stand up for itself, then they just go along with these things. And then you get the people, sure you've seen we've all had to deal with these mask police people that are just kind of nasty. It's like people that go around yelling at other people to put your mask on. It's like, I deal with this shit in my building now, and I tell people to fuck off. It's like, get out of my face. It's like, if you got a mask on, great. But when you look at the stats, they talk about the cases, but they don't talk about the death rate. The fact that the cases might be going through the roof, but the death rate is relatively flat. I live here in Florida, and we're mostly open, even though some of the commie mayors down in South Florida where I live are still imposing these mask mandates. But I'd say at least half the people just completely ignore them. But that's the kind of thing that happens. It's, as a country, we just sit back and we take this stuff, and yet millions of our countrymen and women are being destroyed financially. Their lives are being destroyed. Their families are being destroyed. They put their whole lives into their business, and then just to have it, businesses have been around for decades, been in families for generations, are destroyed and completely out of business now, all in the interest of saving people when the average death rate of this thing is like 80 years old. That's not right. There's nothing honorable about that. And until enough people say enough of this shit and push back, these politicians will just keep getting away with these things. But that's what you see, especially in our world, where it's the government says something that's unreasonable, and people, because they're so weak and docile and compliant, they just go along with it. So back to our email here. He says, like you always say, Coach, women respond to what they respond to. Acting like a dominant, self-assured alpha will make even the most bullheaded of commie women go weak in the knees. Because at the end of the day, if you got a leftist wife, and like he does in this case, or a leftist girlfriend, and you're an alpha male, and you have a take it or leave it kind of attitude, and you're not going to apologize for your views in the world, just like I've made my views known on masks and the other things that I was just talking about, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for it. I know a lot of people will automatically thumbs down the video. It's like, I don't fucking care. I'm a man. I'm speaking my truth. If you don't like it, nobody's forcing you to be here. But obviously, if you're watching, you recognize it on some level, you know that I'm speaking truth. I tell it like it is. And if I was spouting bullshit, it would be all over the internet. People would be all over the internet saying nothing that Corey teaches works. But it's the exact opposite. People go and they write about how mastering yourself helped them, how 3% man helped them and changed their life. My results speak for themselves. And I don't care if people get offended. I don't care if people get butthurt, because the world needs people that stand up for themselves and what they believe in, despite the consequences. Because the reality is not everybody's going to like it. And if I was jumping through my butt trying to please people, there's still going to be people that are going to be upset. So you might as well live and speak your truth, because life is too damn short. He says, even though I've been married for many years, I still have read your book in excess of 11 times, and it has just reinforced the way I've been living most of my life, and my wife respects me more because of it. She respects him because he acts like a man. That's the important thing here. That's a big part of what I teach, especially 3% man. It's really all about being a man. It's not so much doing and saying the right things to get women, because the reality is some women like you already. Attraction's not a choice. And as long as you act like a masculine man consistently, that attraction will grow. And as long as she's feeling the same thing you're feeling, the attraction's there and she respects you, the attraction will grow. But if you start acting like a bitch, it will go in the opposite direction. So only benefits, in my experience, and just here's another guy. You act like a man, you get great results. Simple as that. He says, through most of our marriage, politics weren't readily discussed until President Trump. Now, even though I've always identified as a right-winger, I don't just vote blindly Republican, and I even voted for Obama in 2008. My wife, on the other hand, has always been a vote blue no matter who person. So when Donald Trump ran 4 years ago, he really struck a chord with me, and I was immediately impressed. It's like, well, I did a video several years ago after he won called 25 Reasons Why Donald Trump Won. And, why is people like, why do you like this guy? It's like, because number one, he speaks his truth. He calls out problems, because you can't solve problems unless you can talk honestly and openly about them. And that's what I like about him. He talks about the problem, he identifies it, everybody hates on him for it, and then he implements a solution, and he actually gets things done. Everybody said he'd never build the wall. Well, he's got close to 500 miles of the wall built, and even though the Democratic legislature and even his own Republican Party fought him tooth and nail, wouldn't give him money to do it. So he found ways in the budget to reallocate money. He just won a court case the other day. I think it was like $3.5 billion that he had taken from the defense budget to put towards the wall. And it's helping. All the Border Patrol guys are saying it helps, because having that wall there, it makes it much easier. It eliminates all the people that would just walk across the border before. And now they can really concentrate their resources on those points where people are trying to get through the wall, or identifying and finding tunnels and other ways. They're able to utilize their resources more. So I like the things he's done. I like what he's done with the Middle East. I like all the peace deals. I like the fact that, all these places in the Middle East that absolutely hated Israel are now having peace deals with them, and now they have flights flying back and forth between their countries. That's never happened before. So the media never talks about it. There's probably a lot of people watching this, they don't even know anything about what's been going on in the Middle East. And that's another thing. One of my friends was telling me, it's like when I was writing this thing back in my second book, Mastering Yourself, in 2017, 2018, it's like a lot of the stuff that I talked about in there that was happening or was going to happen, it's happened. And it's, I'm able to read the tea leaves. I see things, the trends, the way things are going in life. And so, even though I got a lot of hate for it, I turned out to be right. Might not always be right, but I'm never wrong, as I often say. So he says his wife predictably hated the guy from the word go. For the first time, politics became center stage in our house, and it brought some turmoil. My wife even threatened to walk out on me if I voted for such a bigot. I simply smiled, because this is how you handle that. He believes in what he believes in. He supports Trump. And he's like, this is who I'm voting for. And she says, I'm going to leave you if you vote for that guy. Remember I talked about in 3% Man, that movie with Russell Crowe as the boxer. And his wife's like, if you fight in this fight, I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to come watch it. I'm not going to participate. I don't agree with this at all. And he's like, I'm a fighter. I got to do it anyways. And yet she still listened and still supported him, even though she said she wouldn't, because he was acting like a man. He was doing what was right. That's why when a guy gets drafted and he goes off to war, or like in World War II's case, people just signed up. And the wife or the parent, I don't want you to go. Stay here. He's like, the man has to go. A man does what he must. Damn the consequences. And so his response to her was, I simply smiled and told her that even though I loved her to death, if she wanted to leave, she knew where the door was. I wasn't budging in my convictions, and even joked that I would find my own Melania if she left. What a great comeback. Because that's the right way to handle that. A woman's trying to get you to compromise in your principles and threatens to leave or threatens in the relationship. He's like, bye. The strongest negotiating position is being able to walk away and mean it. So for him to stay in the marriage and compromise his principles so in hopes that she stay, so say he does that. And then she stays. Guess what happens? Now he's compromised his principles and he's acted like a bitch. What do you think's how she's going to react? She's going to become even bitchier and look for other reasons to find a chink in his armor, because now she doesn't trust his masculine core. because she got him to cave on something that he really believed in. But obviously, he did the right thing because he's a man. She pouted a bit, realizing that I had called her bluff, and a short time later returned to the loving wife she had always been, even though she still hates the president. For the record, I can't stand that cocksucker. Biden did not put up a fuss when... he can't stand Biden. He says, but he didn't put up a fuss when his wife put a Biden lawn sign out. He says, I just put my Trump sign right next to it, which she hates. That's awesome. It's like, this is my house too. If I want to support Trump, I'm going to put my sign right next to yours. It's like, I don't know if any of you have seen that. I've seen that in some of the neighborhoods around where I live. It's kind of funny. You can tell there's people that live in the house that there's differing political opinions. I think it's great. Thankfully, my oldest son takes after me and is more conservative minded, even planning to run for public office on behalf of the GOP. My younger two take more after their mother and lean squarely to the left, but that's life, I guess. I just wanted to share my story and show that even when on totally opposite sides of the political aisle, a marriage can work between two people. Just as long as a man acts like a goddamn man and is always centered in his purpose, his woman will always stand by his side, no matter how liberal-minded. I'm living proof. Well, one caveat, it is, as long as she's not fucking crazy. And she belongs to the streets. By the way, I finally got my She Belongs to the Streets mugs. I know you guys have been asking. I see you guys have been ordering a bunch of these when I mentioned it last week. So these are definitely available in my Teespring store. Just go to Teespring, search Coach Corey Wayne, and She Belongs to the Streets. So he says, thank you so much for what you do, Coach. Keep making America great in your own way with your amazing work. Trump 2020. Make America great again, Trump 2020. And if you'd like to get my help personally and book a coaching session, whether you're having a challenge in your personal life or your professional life, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Obviously, if you haven't read either of my books yet, you can read them at understandingrelationships.com. All you got to do is subscribe to the email newsletter. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.